Hello my tarot friends, Justin Michael, welcome back to my channel, and of course welcome if it's your first time visiting. I appreciate you as always. I want to show you a deck called the Tarot of the Greek Magical Papyri, also known as the PGM Tarot. It's by Jason Augustus Newcomb. So I sold this deck a while back on Facebook. I think it was Kathleen Matthews had shown it in one of the groups, and it was on Kickstarter at the time. I really wanted to back it, but I just, at the time, I was trying to cut back on spending, and I had some other things going on. Then I totally forgot and just missed out on it. But, you know, I've been getting really into Greek mythology. Like, I've always been interested in it, but more recently I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is a phenomenal book, and it really got me very into the kind of Greek mythology mindset. And I've recently revisited you know, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I've just been really into it. So it came at a perfect time. But I'd thought about this deck you know, since I saw it on Kickstarter. Like, I couldn't remember the name of the deck, and I knew what it looked like. It had that kind of authentic looking pottery art style, and it just disappeared. And then I was browsing around on Etsy and I saw it, you know, and it's for sale. And so I'll put the link down below, as well as any other information about the shop or whatever. But it's just fascinating. It totally blew my mind. Some of you may be kind of put off by this because it's not a traditional tarot deck, and like I said, you know, it has the Greek deities and so forth, and also the pips look a little bit complicated, but the book has really put things into perspective. I read this book today, and I haven't worked with this deck, so you have to forgive me. I'm kind of just, this is more or less an introductory look at the deck, not something I've worked with or anything yet. But so you can either buy the deck by itself, or for, you know, an extra few bucks you can get the book. I recommend getting the book. There may be a PDF available. I'm not 100% sure. I will link that information down below as well. But if there's a PDF available, then that's fine too, you know. But I think you'll need the book just because it's so unique. Let's take a look at the cards just briefly. I want to tell you about the card quality in the box. So the box is a kind of like what we see from US Games lately, this two-part box, which is very sturdy, and they're not very big, you know. I kind of like these for storage reasons. They're not much bigger than a tuck box, but they keep the cards nice. They're very, very sturdy, and I really, really like that. So you have 22 majors plus the 56 minors, but then you have an additional 22 cards, which was added in as a bonus. I believe they reached a certain funding goal, and then Jason included that. If you just buy the deck by itself, you'll get, obviously, the cards in the box, and then you'll get this piece of paper here, which is just a brief outline of all the characters in the majors, both the extra majors and the traditional majors. And then you have just brief meanings and stuff. This will come in handy because you'll know which card is what. Obviously, if you didn't have any of this, you won't know who is who, because there are no titles in the deck. There are no numbers in any of the trumps. There's no titles anywhere. In fact, Jason had said he didn't want to use any Arabic numbers or Roman numbers because it was Greek. The Greeks used letters, Greek letters as numbers too. So, you know, he wanted to make it as authentic as possible and based in that kind of magical papyri system. But this would help you, you know. But obviously, I think you would need a bit more, you know, especially because it's not as complicated once you read the book, but, you know, it would be without it. Let me just, before we look into the cards, I just want to show you a bit of the book. So, you know, he talks about the Greek magical papyri, which is that collection of documents. You know, I think I explained it, but it's all primary source documents, spells, devotions, things like that, that, you know, kind of tell us about the ancient Greek practices, religious practices. And so he talks about what he attempted to create here. You know, he was raised in, you know, Western occult type tarots, Golden Dawn and Rider-Waite-Smith and so forth, and he kind of evolved over that, and he wanted to avoid that. And he starts with the minor arcana, and it's all based in Pythagorean numerology, which is very similar to the Pythagorean tarot. Actually, it's sort of the same approach, and even the Pythagorean tarot book starts off with the minors, which usually you see the majors first and then the minors, but he starts off with the minors. I'm gonna show you the majors first, so we'll probably come back to that. But there's several parts to the minors, and then let's see here, and then the majors. Again, you have all deities. So, and he explains pretty well. In fact, I might read this while I'm showing you some of the cards. But the card quality is nothing fancy, but it's kind of sturdy. You know, it's not terrible, but you know, it could have been a little bit nicer, but that's all right. I mean, there is 100 cards, and it's not the fanciest card stock, but it's adequate. You know, they'll hold up and they'll shuffle very well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read a little bit of passage here to kind of give you an idea of what was trying to be accomplished here in the majors. So the number journey through the major arcana is often called the Fool's Journey. In the case of the PGM Tarot, it may be more appropriate to call it the soul's initiatory or shamanic journey through the underworld. Such underworld death and rebirth journeys were the subject of many mystery cults and initiations throughout the ancient world. Many modern occult organizations continue to offer death and rebirth journeys to their adherents even today, like for instance Freemasonry and so forth. That's very, very common. All based in the mystery traditions. So traveling through the cards in this way will illustrate many of the card choices. So we don't have like the traditional Fool's Journey, similar, but it's more or less in the world of the gods. So the first two cards, Hermes and Hecate, are psychopomps. So they're soul guys. So they are the initiators, bringing us into the world of the gods, into the underworld. So both Hermes, usually we see Hermes as the magician, but we have Hermes as the fool, and then we have Hecate as the magician. A series of encounters with Olympians follow. So each has a potential gift, a potential lesson, and a potential challenge. So Zeus, we have Artemis, Hera, Apollo, and Aphrodite. Okay, so those are the Olympians. Okay, we then reach Charon, who carries us in his skiff to the underworld. That's kind of cool. So the chariot kind of brings us further into the underworld. In the underworld, our first encounter is with the divine hero Heracles. So Heracles is he's one of the few people that went into the underworld but was strong enough to kind of leave. Because as we know with the story of Persephone too, once you go into the underworld, it's almost impossible to leave. And so that's represented by Heracles, which of course is strength in this. Okay, so we then meet the Titan Kronos, who is attempting to avoid his destiny, proved impossible. Next, we encounter Fortune in a meeting, Tyche, with her sister Nemesis, and then are tested by Themis, the Titan of divine justice. So here's Tyche, and then here's Themis. So that's justice, divine justice. Descending further, we meet Prometheus, chained and bound, a reminder that resisting the will of the gods is impossible. We find Hades waiting for us next, and he teaches us that we cannot return from this journey as the same being as we began. We must transform, we must let go of what is not eternal and leave it here. Okay, and so Iris appears next. A messenger of Olympus, giving us guidance, if only among shadows pointing us onward. Next we meet Pan, emblem of our most primal urges that bind the cosmos together and cause it to grow and continue. Then in our deepest darkness we encounter the monstrous Typhon, a confrontation with the forces of primal chaos. We have reached the deepest depths, the deepest darkness. Okay, and so then we have Kallisto, who is the star. The nymph transformed into Ursa Major, the bear constellation who points the way to the Axis Mundi, the turning point of the cosmos at the North Star. We begin to move upward and meet the great titans Selene and Helios. Okay, so these are all the Titans. Selene and then Helios. We are purified and consecrated in the encounter and can finally see the way back to the world of the living. Persephone guides us through the gate as we emerge from the underworld, and cheeky Hermes stands in the background. Has he been watching us the whole time? Our final encounter is with Aion, the god of eternity itself. And we are complete. He is a representation of the totality, the whole, what is forever, but also of the cosmos, the world and existence. We have transformed, but the journey led us only to where we began, though we see it now in an entirely new light. The real world we have returned to is an ephemeral dream. The eternal journey we have completed is the real and ever-flowing truth, and we now see what will repeat that journey again and again. So that's just a really, I thought that would be helpful kind of in understanding the purpose of, and give you a little taste of one. Okay, so now we're at the minors, and the minors are kind of tricky. The four aces are probably the most traditional that we're going to see in terms of the minor arcana, and you have here the Ace of Wands. So let me go back to this just to kind of give you an idea. So the aces correspond to monad, the monad, which is, it's the singularity, the kind of the spark almost. It represents the totality of all things, but it's also the starting point. It's and of course, you'll have to learn more about that by reading. The four elements are the same for the most part, but they're represented. There's something interesting here, which I want to point out in a minute to you. But okay, so the Ace of Wands, the Ace of Swords, the Ace of Cups, and then we have the Ace of Coins here. Okay, so now when we come to the twos. So now they're all grouped together in terms of, so I have all the twos together, all the threes together, and the two is of course the dyad. Important thing about this is, so there's three parts to these. Okay, you have above, you usually have a talisman, and then you have a little scene, and then you have a piece from like the Homeric oracle, which is taken from the writings of Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, but it's as is found in the Greek magical papyri. And then he has sort of here like an interesting thing. So wands. So the scene that you see here is represented by these figures here. So wands, you have the philosopher rulers. Swords is the warrior guardians. Cups, the artisan merchants, and coins, the servant workers. And of course he explains a lot about, like, he talks about Plato's Republic and so forth, and the different ways that is incorporated in that. But wands is fire, swords air, cups water, and coins earth. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all of that, but basically that the important part is that there are three parts. So you have this, which is a talisman, usually, which can be used for the magical practice, using it for conjuring magic and so forth, but it also kind of works in with the meaning. And then you have a scene here with which kind of act as like the pips, and then you have a little piece of Homer, the Homeric writings. So there's three parts. The Homeric oracle or the Homer oracle, it's called. So I showed you the ace, which is the monad. This is the dyad, the twos. Number two is about things coming together and things moving apart. And then we have all the threes together. So, I mean, it's going to take a bit of familiarity. You're going to have to read the book and kind of get to, get familiar with the system here. It's a bit complicated. I couldn't figure out which card was which at first. But now, of course, I know that this is a talisman up here that's taken from the magical papyrus. This is, I guess the pip scene. You don't have any numbers. You don't have any title. The number of people and the number of swords or elemental objects is going to be what pip it is. So we have here the Four of Swords, because you have 4 soldiers and then 4 swords. And so it's something that you would get familiar with over time. So, and the 5s and so forth. And you have to read all about it, you know, to get familiar. So I'm just going to kind of go through this a bit quicker because, you know, I'm going to keep it relatively short. After giving a mass of bronze and gold and raiment. You know. So, I mean, you could actually almost treat it like bibliomancy, too, if you wanted to. And use the words in your divination. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with this. Obviously, it's up to you. The author gives you, the creator gives you a lot of liberty to do whatever you want. There are no titles. So, I mean, for me, this is going to be more of an oracle. You know, I'll probably put cards. Here are the court cards, which is, it's a very complicated thing. It's basically, it corresponds to something, a part of the magical papyri that has to do with Helios, the levels of existence. And it corresponds to that. It's kind of complex, and I just read about it today, so I'm not going to be able to explain it very well. But, you know, these are all the courts. It's a really cool deck. I mean, the pips are interesting. You can just use them as regular pips once you get familiar with it. And then, of course, you know, you can use these as regular court cards. He calls them, I think he calls the kings philosophers, the queens, I think he calls poets, something like that. It's I can't remember everything, but you know, you have to read the book and get kind of familiar with Jason's system. It's really interesting, man, you know. And so here are the extra majors, and of course you could swap them out with the other majors, or you can use them as a separate oracle, whatever you want to do. But you know, Hestia, Hephaestus, Dionysus, Demeter, you know, Ares. So that could work as the chariot. You know, these could work. Actually, I wonder. Okay, so Hestia would be, I guess, the fool. Hephaestus would be the magician. Okay, high priestess is Dionysus. I don't know if that would work. Demeter. Whatever you wanted to do with that. That looked like it could work as the chariot, though. That's all I was saying. Athena, Poseidon, Rhea, Ammon, and there was a couple Greek, Egyptian deities, which of course is very linked to Greek mythology. You know, they're very, very related. There's more Egyptian stuff in this one, though, which is kind of cool, you know. Seth, Thoth. But anyway, that's it. That's the tarot of the Greek magical papyri. Mithra looks like the world. And then Serapis. I may have had them out of order. I'm not sure. But anyway, there you have it. There's the tarot of the Greek magical papyrus. So just a quick announcement. So I have a couple videos coming up. Well, one video I'm going to be, it's a new video in my historic card series. We're going to be taking a look at a particular type of card. I don't want to say too much about that. It'll be a surprise, but keep an eye out for that if you're interested in tarot history. And then next Thursday, the 5th of May at 1 p.m., I'm interviewing Sasha Graham on my Titans of Tarot. She's, you know, next to my Titans of Tarot series. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, we should have some interesting conversations. She's a very interesting and very knowledgeable person. I've really enjoyed her books, and you know, I'm getting familiar with her Darkwood Tarot and so forth. But Sasha Graham is very, very fascinating person. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. And so again, that's next Thursday, May 5th at 1 p.m. Live here on YouTube. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that walkthrough. And until next time, love and peace, everyone. Bye-bye.